Carbohydrates also provide what is called an anti-catabolic effect. What in the world is that? That's just a fancy term for it prevents the breakdown of muscle. So you don't actually have to be training to use carbohydrates. You can eat carbohydrates throughout the day so that you prevent the breakdown of muscle. Along with protein, which we'll get to in a minute, is a great combination for making sure that you are building and repairing muscle in between your exercise sessions. So foods high in carbohydrates include fruits, starchy vegetables, things like potatoes and sweet potatoes, rice, grains, beans, tortillas, crackers, granola, cereal. You guys get the picture. The starchy complex things are called complex carbohydrates. Simple carbohydrates come from things like fruit and sugar. Most of your carbohydrates should be complex carbohydrates, but it's certainly okay, in fact recommended, to get servings of fruit throughout the day and occasionally use things that are high in sugar to help support your exercise. Fiber is also a form of carbohydrate that's very important. It's not really digestible like from your body standpoint, but the bacteria, the healthy bacteria that live in your gut, love to eat fiber. That's why it gives you gas sometimes. But fiber is really important for gut regularity, for having good digestion, and for being able to use the bathroom. So if you want those benefits, you need to be having fiber in your diet. Around 20 to 30 grams a day is good for most athletes. Well, let's move on to protein. Protein is one of my favorite macronutrients because everybody's excited about it, right? Do I need a protein supplement? Is this protein drink going to help me as an athlete? Well, to answer that question is protein. It doesn't matter if it comes from a food or from a powder or from a bar, whatever is most convenient for you and that you can consistently do. Protein helps to build and repair muscle. In fact, it is the building block of muscles. Protein is made of amino acids that when you eat, go and repair and build that for you. Protein is also important because it helps to slow down digestion. Why is that important? Well, think about it. When you have a bowl of cereal for breakfast, when are you hungry again? You're hungry an hour later. But what happens when you eat eggs or you get some Greek yogurt in with that breakfast? You tend to stay full longer. You can make it until lunchtime. So if you want a better energy curve throughout the day that looks a little bit smoother, not so high up and down, then you want to include some protein with your meals so that you're not only getting that muscle building effect, but you're slowing down digestion and helping yourself to have better energy. Protein is high in foods like meat, but specifically lean meat. There's a difference between something like a pork loin and a piece of bacon. Foods like sausage, hot dogs, bacon, foods that have a lot of marbling in it, like a ribeye steak, are going to be very high in fat. Doesn't mean that fat's bad, but if you're trying to eat more protein, you should focus on foods that are high in protein. So any sort of meat, seafood, shrimp, and fish are a good source of protein. Milk and eggs. Like I said, Greek yogurt is a great way to get more protein. Yogurt does have protein in it, but Greek yogurt is higher in protein. And then you can also do things like soybeans, tofu, tempeh, seitan. All of those are good vegetarian sources of protein that can help you reach your protein needs. And then finally, coming back to the snacks and the powders like the protein bars or the protein drinks, those are great. There's nothing special about them, but in the morning, if you're running out the door, I can see a lot more of my athletes grabbing a protein shake than maybe stopping to cook a mess of eggs. So that covers protein as our macronutrient. We've talked about carbs, talked about protein. Now let's get into fats. I find the term dietary fat an unfortunate one because we've also named the adipose tissue, or the body fat that we store in our body, the same thing. But they're not the same thing. What you eat in your dietary fat doesn't just turn into body fat. It's used as energy, and it helps make food taste good, and it's also used for hormone production. So if you completely eliminate fat from your diet, you're not going to be able to produce hormones like you do for rebuilding and repairing muscle. You're going to put yourself at risk of deficiency, increased risk of injury, and probably you're not going to last very long because your food is not going to taste very good. Do you need to pour oil and butter over all of your food so that you can get a high amount of fat? No. Most foods have some fat in them. You want to look at fat as like a garnish. It's something that you add to your plate to make the food taste good, but it doesn't necessarily need to be the feature of it. Remember that carbohydrates are what give you the most amount of energy, so those should be the biggest portion of the foods that you're eating throughout the day, with a moderate amount of protein and a touch of dietary fat in what you're eating. So foods high in fat include butter, oils, avocados, some of those fatty meats that we talked about earlier, like sausage and bacon, fried foods, nuts, butter, and cheese. So those foods are all high in fat. I think I said butter twice, so you can remember that one because it is indeed high in fat. And those are the macronutrients. So those are the functions that all of those have in the body. They're all important, and that's why we need to be eating all of them, and they all deserve your attention. Well, that's it for me today.